Um, and we start because
Yes, madam. Please.
late by 1 minute.
It's okay. Thank you.
Good morning, you. Good afternoon. Let me welcome you to our second Open Vision IAEG meeting. And very quickly, let me review the logistics for WebEx. I will request all the attendees to reduce background noise. Enter their comments and questions in the chat window, and we will be able to address as much as we can during the question and answers session. So please let us notice all these guidelines so that we make our meeting smoothly and we can hear each other. Without much ado, let me introduce the first agenda item that we have, and I'm sure the Secretariat did a good job to circulate these agenda items several weeks ago. So we will be receiving the update of IAEG-SDG working group, and we will start with measurement development support. May I now welcome Karen Dane from Colombia, who is the current chair of the working group, to give us the presentation. Over to you, Madam Karen.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on which side of the world you are. Since this is an open meeting, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Karen Chavez, and I am representing the National Statistics of Colombia as a member of the IAEG SDG Working Group. This presentation is based on the written report submitted to the IAEG SDG and describe the work conducted by the UN Working Group on Measuring Development Support. This work that has been led by the Secretariat in charge of UNDESA and the co-chairs, Norway and Colombia, in line of what has been established in the terms of reference of this group. So next, please. Regarding the membership, and as I was saying in a moment, this group will be co-chaired by one representative of a donor country, which is Norway, and one representative of a recipient country, which is Colombia, with one of the two chairs to be chosen among members of the IAEG, in this case, Colombia. My colleague Camilo Mendez is chairing this working group as the representative of Colombia, and I'm also as member of the IAEG SDG and following the discussions. From Norway, we have Anne Lisbeth as the representative and co-chair of this working group. The membership is limited to 21 countries for practical purposes, keeping a number reasonably low while ensuring balanced regional representation. A geographical distribution of members is presented in this slide. So also I want to highlight that the membership includes currently 11 countries from the IAEG SDGs with full membership, and also 10 country members of a TOS task force. Additionally, there is the possibility for countries to participate as observers We have set a limit of 10 countries as observers. Currently, there is just one country as observer, which is Brazil, and Brazil is also a member of the IAEG-SDGs. The co-chairs of the working group maybe invite additional countries with a specific expertise on a particular issue, and or any country could present their request to the Secretariat to be member of this group. Also, the Statistics Division of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, is the secretariat of this working group and provides support to the co-chairs Norway and Colombia, and ensure that the progress of the work is according to the established plan and the terms of reference that has given by the IAEG SDG. Also, we have the participation of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, who provide substantive support to the working group. Other international agencies and entities can be consulted at any time. I want to highlight that the terms of reference mandate us to have a focal point, but in the meetings we have been able to include the participation not only of one focal point of countries. There has been times that more than one representative of countries and or agencies can participate and give their views on what is going on this group. Next slide, please. Up to this point, since the first meeting on May 27th of this working group, we have conducted 4 meetings. This is a mean of 1 meeting per month, so we know that the task that we has been mandate has a lot of work to do. That's why we keep permanent contact with all members. And as is described in this slide, all meetings has counted with the participation to a lot of members of the working group. In the first meeting, we have the participation of 19 countries out of 21, with 42 delegates, and there was the election of the co-chairs, Norway and Colombia, and also the establishment of the working group and a mechanism of permanent communication. That was the wiki platform. The wiki platform, I want to highlight, that is a tool of communication that is open 24/7 to any member, and also upon request to the secretariat, anyone can have user to be able to see every document and every discussion that has been posted on the wiki platform. So besides being a tool of communication, it's also a digital repository of all answers that has been provided by countries, and at the same time of all questions that has been raised by the secretariat and the co-chairs in order to define some of the most relevant topics that we are considering to join the discussion. In the second meeting, we have the participation of 17 out of 21 members, and also Brazil joined as observer. There was a presentation and a discussion of a background paper with the launch of a survey of 8 initial questions. For us, these 8 initial questions could address every important issues that must be on the table of the discussion of this working group. And all members agreed that the 8 questions were proper in order to address this task that has been conducted. Finally, and going beyond the detail of each one of the meeting, I want to highlight that the term we have adjusted the work of this working group to what's mandated by the IAEG-SDGs regarding first the geographical representation, the interdisciplinary participation of National Statistics Office and development assistance agencies. Also, the Secretariat has played a very relevant role leveling up the knowledge between the participants. The Secretariat has provided background papers, the surveys, and also has organized all the discussions and the answers provided by countries. Still, we have some challenge, which we describe here. First, virtual meetings. Virtual meetings sometimes are not enough to address all issues. Still, we have the wiki platform and email channel is always open. We also want to go a little bit more in deep with internal consultations of countries. And up to this point, we have accomplished the calendar that has been established, and that's it.
Okay.
So I'm passing now the floor to Albina. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Khan from Colombia. So I will request UNSD Secretariat just to read one question and then you will respond because you are running out of time. UNSD, over to you. If we can tackle just one question and then we proceed to another agenda item. Over to you.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. There was just one quick question, if you can explain the future work plan of the working group. Thank you.
Over to you, Madam Karen, just 1 minute, the future of the working group. And if we can also share with all the members the future work of the coming group. Over to you, Madam Karen.
Yes. So for September and December, we have proposed to address 3 of the 8 initial questions. What concept of development support should we apply? If we should think about one indicator or more, and also about the unit of measure, if it could be an amount or a ratio. And also we want to start to have specific presentations on the development of TOST.
Thank you so much, Madam Karen, and I hope you will share the coming work in future this group with all the members and also encouraging the internal consultation within the country. So thank you so much. Let me now introduce the agenda item, and this is about the methodological development on SDG monitoring. And I will now welcome Mr. Oscar to give to do the presentation from the prior city group. Back to you.
Good morning.
So Oscar, to you.
You hear me?
We hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Governance statistics in the COVID-19 era. This is the presentation on behalf of the City Group. It's a guidance note that will be released today. Next slide, please. Thank you. Why governance statistics to address a health crisis? COVID-19 is far more than a health crisis. It's also a governance crisis. It has brought secondary impacts, and it has also drawn attention to dysfunction of governance. And it's important to find out this crisis on governance as well that may be hindering an effective response. For example, I'm sorry, I'm hearing some noise. And thank you. For instance, statistics on whether people are able to access justice and resolve their problems in countries where courts are operating virtually can be important. It can also be used by oversight institutions and civil society to hold their government to account on its response plan and recovery strategy. Governance statistics can also provide early warnings of civil unrest and violence. People trusting the police are important. Information on the quality of governance is a public good, just like information on the health, demographic, or economic profile. And therefore, NSOs have an important role to play. Next slide, please. Thank you. Therefore, this new guidance on governance statistics in the COVID-19 era is aimed to assist NSOs and other governance data producers in meeting the governance information needs most likely to arise during the pandemic and its aftermath. For example, is testing and medical treatment for COVID-19 accessible to everyone without discrimination? What are the most common justice problems created or exacerbated by the pandemic? This guidance note builds on main recommendation of the Handbook on Governance Statistics, which was recently submitted to the United Nations Statistical Commission. The handbook was aimed at developing international statistical guidance and standards for 8 dimensions of governance. And in many ways, this guidance note serves as an executive summary of the handbook. This guidance note examines the same 8 thematic areas, this time from the perspective of the COVID-19 and related governance challenges, and keeping in mind that the operational and financial constraints placed on traditional based operations. Next slide, please.
If you could, because of the time, if you could rush into the conclusion, because the guidance has already been tabled, I think, in our last commission meeting. Please jump to your conclusion.
Yes, I will try to do that. Thank you. This guidance for statistics. I'm sorry, but I'm still hearing too much noise. Thank you. Also for other governance data producers outside the national statistical system. So research institutions, civil society, and the private sector. And also for a wide range of governance statistics, such as policymakers, media, national oversight institutions, civil society groups. This guidance is also relevant for future crises, taking into account that large-scale statistical operations have been affected in many places. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of the content. The guidance includes a cross-cutting issues for user focus, for applying human right-based approach to statistics in time of crisis, harnessing the full potential of administrative records, conducting household service remotely. The 8 thematic briefs that it contains are non-discrimination and equality, participation, openness, access to and quality of justice, responsiveness, absence of corruption, trust, and safety and security. It includes also some recommended indicators. Finally, next one, please, and the last one. This is the last slide. This guidance note should be considered a living document that will be updated to reflect the latest country experiences in producing and using governance statistics to inform effective and sustainable COVID-19 responses. We therefore encourage NSOs and other national and international producers and users of governance statistics to contact us to share their valuable experiences with us so we can add them to this compendium. We would also like to reassert the full commitment and availability of the prior group support and collaborate with other countries in applying this guidance in any of the 8 thematic areas covered in the note. Should you have any question, please contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oscar, for keeping time and of course for encouraging attendees and others to take charge of going through the guidance and of course to contact you in case we need your assistance. Thank you so much. May I now welcome Madam Jennifer from the World Bank to deliver the review of the metadata translation project by the World Bank in collaboration with other country partners. Over to you, Madam Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am Jennifer Park. It is a pleasure to speak with you today. As work on the SDGs has matured, countries and agencies have asked for SDG metadata translations to improve the transparency and access of SDG data. This supports capacity building of national statistical offices and engagement with the public and policymakers in a fundamental way. It is the heart of leaving no one behind. The World Bank heard countries' requests and saw an opportunity to respond to this need. The project I will review today is an open source, low cost, and efficient solution. Next slide, please. The project converts SDG metadata into machine-readable format. This enables efficient and very low-cost computer-assisted translation by national statistical offices and their experts. Specifically, we had 3 objectives. 1, to make machine-readable SDG metadata files to speed and reduce costs of the translation process and to aid version control. This also supports metadata transmission through SDMX. 2, to translate machine-readable metadata with computer-assisted translation software, whereby a translator with statistical expertise selects and edits the best translation for each metadata component. And 3, to post the resulting translations on our public website using open source software. All metadata files and documentation are available for viewing and download. This facilitates further translation into additional languages by our partners by reducing their time and cost. Next slide, please. How did we do it? Our pilot study was possible through a number of important partnerships. Specifically, the World Bank's ECOSTAT Trust Fund, comprising the Russian Federation, UNECE, CIS-STAT, and the World Bank, funded the development of machine-readable metadata files for the pilot study. UNECE and Rostat funded the translation of the pilot metadata files into Russian. StatCan signed a letter of agreement with the World Bank whereby StatCan provided French translations of the machine-readable metadata files. We are currently discussing a similar letter of agreement to provide Spanish translations of the machine-readable metadata files. In addition, it is important to note that through our close work with the SDMX-SDG Working Group, our machine format is fully compliant with emerging metadata standards and advances SDG data transmission at country and agency levels. We hope to continue working closely with the IAEG-SDG and its secretariat to support version control as indicators and their metadata continue to evolve. Next slide, please. What are our next steps? Pilot protocols, machine-readable files in English, Russian, and French, and presentations are available at our website. We propose to convert remaining metadata into machine format. If approved, it would be possible to deliver Russian and possibly French and Spanish translations before the March 2021 UNSC meeting. Statistical experts prepare translations aided by an evolving terms of art glossary. We welcome guidance from the IAEG-SDG to further support quality control. We seek further opportunities to collaborate with partners to generate translations into additional languages, aided by statistical experts. In summary, we see enormous potential to engage further with national statistical offices and regional offices as the project expands to include additional indicators, languages, and to support quality control. This would be possible only through continued and new partnerships. We are looking for collaborators and have flexibility. Please contact us. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Madam Jennifer, for the highlights. And let me assure you the commitment from the IAEG-SDG Working Group. Then we have additional remarks from ECLAC. May I now welcome Umar from the World Bank to take us through.
Hello, Albina. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet everybody. Now, not much to add really, but just wanted to thank Jennifer and my colleague Buyant for all their work. Wanted to acknowledge the partners in this collaboration, the ECASTAT TF and the statistics strategic partnership with Rostat and StatCan. And this turned out to be very efficient and low cost, and I hope there will be take up, because there is enormous potential to engage further, and the NSOs and regional bodies should find it interesting as the project expands to include additional indicators and languages. So thank you for this effort, and thanks, Madam Chua, for giving me the floor.
Thank you so much, Umar. And let me assure you that any issues, we are ready to work with you as we normally do. May I now welcome Madam Natalia for additional remarks, if any. Madam Natalia, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Good day, everyone. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your presentation, and we thank World Bank for initiating this project to translate SDG indicators metadata in Russian language. This is crucial as for Russian users, as for Russian-speaking countries. Despite the fact that we have already translated all existing metadata for SDG indicators and put them on Rostat website, it is important to have their official translations to publish them on UN website. We are happy to know that modern technologies are being used for SDG indicators metadata translation, and however, there is a little concern about the fact that metadata are being constantly updated. It should be tracked. And we hope there are some solutions for that situations. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Madam Natalia, for that. May I now welcome Madam Kara Williams from Canada, our IEG member. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation, and thanks to the World Bank for starting this project. StatCan was really happy to take part in that because we believe it is really important for the metadata to be translated into all of the UN languages, and for us in particular into French. One of the things that is key for this project is that the metadata needs to be in a consistent format. So the SDMX format works well, and the UN World Bank putting it into machine readable format really is key to use translation tools. One of the things that we noted with the translation that our people had done is that it needs to have a really good source language, and so some of the metadata may need to be updated, as we found some sentence fragments, sentences that don't make sense. So that is something that is key. Overall, we found this tool very easy to use. It really reduced the time for translation. And what our strategy was to have a couple of people doing the translation and then checking each other's work. So it was very easy to use, and we thank the World Bank for starting this because it's something that is really needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Kara, and we know the effort that you are doing in our group and hoping we'll do so. Okay, so once again, let me introduce another speaker, and this is Pietro Gennari from FAO. To take us through the indicator 15.4.2 methodological and the refinement of the validation process. Over to you, Mr. Pietro.
Madam Chair, this is Dorian Navarro. I will be delivering the presentation on behalf of FAO in Pietro's stead.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So my name is Dorian Navarro. For those of you who may not know me, I am with the Office of the Chief Statistician of FAO. Earlier this month, FAO submitted a revised metadata document for indicator 15.4.2, the Mountain Green Cover Index, to UNSD. And we wanted to take this opportunity to explain the rationale of the changes, since they appear quite substantial. Let me recall that this indicator was developed in 2015 by FAO, based on geospatial data, with the idea of reducing the reporting burden on countries.
You can control the sound.
I'm sorry, I hear
Or if you can control.
So the methodology was approved by the IAEG in October 2015, and then FAO generated initial baseline data in 2017, which were submitted to countries for validation in accordance with the IAEG guidelines on global reporting. Now, this first validation process in 2017 revealed some issues. Some countries expressed concern about the data source, particularly what was perceived as FAO imposing a data source. Also, the interpretation of the indicator was indicated as problematic by some countries, particularly the assumption that increasing green mountain cover is always a positive change. In addition, the validation process itself was cumbersome, both for countries and FAO, especially due to the very large number of data points to be interpreted and validated by countries. On top of this, we noted that insufficient coordination at country level and a validation mechanism fully reliant on email exchanges yielded a low response rate. So this year, FAO therefore revised the data collection approach to this indicator to address some of these issues and introduce an improved data validation mechanism to try to overcome some of the previous challenges. So what are the principal changes to the indicator? The changes mainly relate to the data source, but not to the actual methodology for compiling the indicator. Previously, the indicator suggested the use of Collect Earth, a tool developed by a consortium of partners, including FAO, Google, and others. And this may have inadvertently led to a perception that FAO was imposing a data source. Moreover, despite being an open source tool, the Collect Earth approach still relied on visual interpretation of specific points overlaid on top of a satellite image, and this required countries to have specifically trained personnel for validating the data. So this new revised metadata replaces data collected using Collect Earth, which was the previous approach, with the global land cover time series data produced by the European Space Agency as a general solution, which of course can be replaced by more accurate national land cover data if available. The advantages of this new data source are multiple. First, it does not require visual interpretation and therefore greatly facilitates the indicator calculation because the land cover type is automatically assessed by an algorithm. The approach also reduces the margin of error as it assesses the totality of the surface area instead of using a sampling approach as before. It is flexible as it allows countries to use their own land cover data sets if available, and it is sustainable as it uses data that is constantly updated by the Copernicus program of the EU, ensuring continuity of service and continuous improvements in the accuracy of the resolution. The actual procedure to calculate the indicator hasn't really changed. It's rather straightforward. Land cover classes now from the European Space Agency map are classified into a green and non-green cover map. The reclassification of land cover types follows an established scheme shown in this table here. Then we have the mountain elevation ranges, the so-called CAPOS ranges overlaid on top of the green non-green map. And finally, the zonal statistics are calculated for each country in such a way that the number of pixels belonging to green and non-green classes are counted within each elevation range, according to this formula. Now, this metadata revision acknowledges that in a limited number of cases, an increase in the indicator value may indeed be a sign of degradation. This is the case, for instance, of green vegetation emerging as a result of melting of perennial ice and snow as a direct effect of global warming. Another example is the cropping on hill slopes, which can lead to degradation. Such changes can be tracked with the current methodology and flagged accordingly to distinguish this case from the general desired trend of increasing mountain green cover as a sign of mountain health. Furthermore, the green vegetation category includes both natural vegetation and human-introduced vegetation. And this metadata acknowledges that natural and anthropic-driven green classes should be accounted for separately, as they relate differently to the health of mountain ecosystems. The particular method for doing this, however, is still under development, I'd like to emphasize, and this will be introduced at a subsequent metadata revision. This will require, among other things, identifying a series of agreed criteria for degradation. For instance, ice changing to greenery, or crops appearing on slopes. I want to say a few words on the results of the validation process. Keeping with its foreseen triennial reporting cycle, FAO generated new estimates for this indicator in the first half of this year, and then launched a new validation round. This was launched on the second working day of August, initially setting a deadline for country feedback by the 31st of August, which was later extended to the 14th of September. To improve on past shortcomings, FAO introduced a number of innovations in this new validation round. First, we provided countries that requested additional information with a tailored data visualization tool, displaying the overlay of the Kapos mountain elevation layer with the land cover type layers. So as you can see, we can move this ruler and see the overlay on the left-hand side of the land cover classes and on the right-hand side of the mountain elevation layers. And this was done to facilitate the validation of data. We also provided all countries with an online survey form with which to provide their feedback in order to avoid this flurry of emails and therefore facilitate country responses and their compilation by FAO. We addressed the designated ENSO SDG focal point as foreseen by the IAEG guidelines, but we also copied the FAO Global Forest Resources Assessment National Correspondence so as to facilitate national coordination. And all these elements contributed to the 2020 validation round, yielding better results than previously. We had 21% of countries approving the validation request, as opposed to 12% in 2017. 39% of countries responded to the validation request, which was more or less the same number in 2017. 9% of countries declined to publish the FAO estimates compared to 7% in 2017. And perhaps the most remarkable change was the fact that 13% of countries provided FAO with their own alternative national data, as opposed to 0 such cases in 2017. So let me conclude with the next steps for us. We are now compiling the revised data set based on the country feedback from the validation process, and we will submit this data set to UNSD next week in time for the third window of data submission. In case FAO has entered a dialogue with the country to resolve specific issues, and this has still not come to a conclusion, we will submit a data set without including the particular national estimate for that country. And the aim will be to come to an agreement and include that estimate in time for the fourth window of data submission in December. Country feedback on the process will be used to further refine the metadata and fine-tune the validation process. FAO will work on refining the methodology by using higher resolution data and identifying specific cases where increased indicator value may be a sign of degradation. And FAO will also support the validation and generation of national estimates with a set of software tools tailored for this purpose. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Dorian Navarro, on behalf of Pietro. So I will request Secretariat just to read 2 questions, and I will give 1 minute for each presenter to wrap up. Over to Secretariat, we have just 2 minutes.
Actually, Madam Chair, I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but if I would encourage everyone to still continue to send your questions to the chat for everyone to see, and perhaps the speakers can address them in the chat window themselves. But as of now, we don't see anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and okay. Thank you so much, and of course, all the presentation will be shared under the IAEG website for this meeting.
Canada has a question in the chat box to Dorian.
I have seen the question. So the question is whether there are ongoing metadata revisions. What I meant was that we have now a kind of a mature version that we have already submitted to the IAG for your approval, and any further changes will be prospectively coming next year, but not in the short term.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dorian, and hoping you will continue working with the IEG for this validation process. Thank you so much, members. May I now invite Madam Viveka to continue with the other agenda items. Madam Viveka, over to you.
Thank you very much, Albina, for that. I will try to start the video and my microphone. It seems to be working. So hello, everyone. Very nice to be here with you. We will now move on to the next agenda item, which is national, regional, and the civil society SDG monitoring activities. And I would like to introduce the first speaker. It is Mrs. Yongshil Park from the Republic of Korea, who will tell us about their processes and their activities. Thank you very much.
I'm here to present about SDG monitoring in the Republic of Korea. Next, please. This is contents of my presentation. I will start with institutional background. Our government set up the Korean SDG in 2018. Under the government, role of COSTAD is not only to monitor national SDG, but also to monitor global SDG. To fulfill this role, we create data center for SDG this year. The vision of the center is to become a research hub in the fields of SDG indicator and data in Korea and beyond. We have three roles. First, to coordinate and report on the global SDG indicator. Second, collaborate with global statistical community. Third, support inclusive policy making. To coordinate more effectively, we built a data network. In domestic situation, Korea has decentralized statistical system. So it is important to form cooperative network with our ministry. Collaborating with this network, we provide national data to custodian agency upon the requesting, and we also review the data and metadata for more accurate international comparison. Managing SDG data and metadata is a core activity of SDG monitoring. So we filter SDG metadata repository by translating global metadata into Korean context. It purports to ensure that the indicator is consistently understood by all stakeholders. Metadata is made up of four sections for each indicator: basic structure of indicator, global definition, metadata of global data, metadata of national data. We also try to explain the cause of discrepancy between global and national data in the section 2. As a result, we classified global indicator into 4 types in terms of data source, as you see in figure. This data and metadata is disseminated at the national reporting platform. We are developing SDG data platform based on open source. It will be officially launched in early next year because the data and metadata upload is expected to be completed by the end of this year. The third page work customized to better present our data, document, and activity, and it is displayed in both Korean and English for wider communication. For the Korean version, it will be integrated into National Indicator Portal in 2022. Based on data, we release progress report annually. Our initial report was published last year, and it was Korean version. From next year, the report will be published both in Korean and English version at the same time. The theme of next edition is COVID-19 on 17 goal and the disadvantaged group, but it's insufficient data which covers Corona time period is a big challenge for us. We also encourage users to be engaged. The Open SDG Forum is regularly scheduled to take place before the HLPF, but this year it was postponed to November due to COVID-19. In addition, first workshop on SDG data will be held next year. Objective of this workshop is to share progress results, to improve data literacy, and to learn mutually. This slide shows the research and development. To improve data availability, we need to apply more innovative ways of producing data. Our research project focuses on subject areas such as disability and migration status, geographical information system, and crime and criminal justice. Due to time limitation, I briefly mentioned the current situation. So if you need more detailed information, please email to me. For crime and criminal justice research, we collaborate with UNODC Costa Center of Excellence to support data production and reporting process in Asia and the Pacific area. We also have a study to produce indicator on goal 9 and goal 11 by applying new data source and innovative technique. Statistics on disability is one of the challenging areas. This year, we collect data with disability based on Washington Group's concepts through census and social survey. Social survey was already completed in May, and census is going to be conducted in November. This slide is about Costa's response to COVID-19. Costa has tried to collect data without stopping even under the pandemic. We are responding in a way that minimizes face-to-face interview, digitized data collection method, and delays in planned survey. But in some cases, we have released more frequent data to support policy making. Excess deaths is an example. It is defined as the difference between the observed number of deaths and the expected number of deaths in specific time period. Expected number has been set at maximum in the past 3 years. So the number of deaths in 2020 was compared based on the over the past 3 years. As a result, no persistent excess deaths has been found in Korea. But it provides useful understanding the pandemic crisis on the mortality to identify vulnerable group and local units. There are another example. Mobile phone data is used to estimate mobility flow, and daily price index such as face masks are provided. These statistics support COVID-related policy decisions such as social distancing and stabilizing face mask prices. You can find more COVID-related information by visiting Costa website. This was the last slide of my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please leave message in the chat room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, there seems like we have several colleagues that have problems with the sound, so we may have to be more attentive to the chat messages. I just wanted to ask you, NSD, I think we are recording this and we will put it up on the website. So if you miss something of the sound, you could probably listen to it afterwards. If it's an occasional glitch somewhere in the system. So thank you very much. And now we have the next speaker who's going to talk about the SDG Gateway, and I welcome Mrs. Pauline Stockings from ECLAC. Please, Pauline.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. And thank you for giving ECLAC a space for quick present to you the regional knowledge platform for the Sustainable Development Goals in Latin America and the Caribbean. Next, please. Well, let me start by giving you some background information. This platform was launched in June this year, even though it was available for the general public several months before that, and it was developed jointly by the UN system, including more than 20 agencies, funds, and programs working in the region. The purpose of the platform is to facilitate the implementation, monitoring, and statistical follow-up of the SDGs at different levels, and to foster collaboration across the entities of the UN system operating at the regional level. Next, please. Well, being at the homepage, the primary navigation items include background information on the 2030 agenda and highlights of the regional architecture for the implementation and follow-up of the 2030 agenda. There is an entry by goal too, where you can find information, tools, publications, news, and other knowledge products from the regional organizations working in each of the SDGs and key messages from the Latin America and the Caribbean region. Next, please. Here we can see also an entry by country, providing information on the institutional mechanisms, the VNRs, national indicators, news, and publications for the 33 countries of the region. Next, please. Information is also accessible by organization, and by now more than 1,500 information resources are available coming from 18 large UN agencies, funds, and programs. Next, please. Well, even though the statistical information has been incorporated in different sections of the site, there is a whole section dedicated to statistics, basically organized in 3 levels: the global, regional, and national statistical monitoring, providing access to data compiled through the UN system and with different formats and intended to different target audiences. Next, please. If we go to the global section, this section basically provides links to the most relevant SDG statistical global sites, including the UN Global SDG Indicators Database and the United Nations Statistical Commission, among others. Next, please. One content that is worth mentioning in this section is a database we developed that has links to more than 50 statistical databases of the custodian and partner agencies of the SDG indicators. Here you can find links to general statistical databases and specific SDG data web portals developed and maintained by international organizations. Next, please. Regarding the regional statistical monitoring, this section offers information. This is the main section, the statistical part, and it offers information on the main institutional arrangements for the statistical follow-up of the SDGs in the LAC region, information on the prioritized set of SDG indicators for Latin America and the Caribbean, the result of a national statistical capacity questionnaire for the production of the SDG indicators we have been undertaking with the countries of the region, a data bank with an interactive dashboard, access to predefined dynamic profiles by targets, and links to other related regional and sub-regional commitments, among others. Another section you will see is included here, but is not available yet, is one that will contain the exercises undertaken by ECLAC in measuring the progress of the region in achieving the targets. This is an issue of great importance for ECLAC. The 5 regional commissions have been working jointly on this issue, and it was also addressed during our last meeting of the Statistical Conference of the Americas. Next, please. Regarding the main institutional arrangements, you will find a description of the activities of the Statistical Coordination Group for the 2030 Agenda in the region. This group comprises countries that are part of the IAEG and the HLG. ECLAC as a technical secretariat, and representatives of agency funds and programs of the UN system. Next, please. In this slide, you can see an example of the interactive dashboard of the SDG indicators, where you can visualize, compare, and download information. It contains the official global indicators coming from the global SDG database, along with regional proxy and complementary indicators available in ECLAC databases. Next, please. Well, for each indicator, you will find additional information, including the metadata. In this respect, I would like to point out that we still need to work on the translation of the metadata into Spanish. And for this purpose, we have been in conversations with the World Bank to be part of the metadata translation project they are undertaking and that Jennifer described very well before. We believe it is a key aspect, so we really hope to start working with them pretty soon, probably with the financial support of the IDB. Next, please. Another element I would like to highlight are the predefined dynamic profiles for each target, and comprises a pre-selected set of indicators for the regional aggregate developed on the basis of the United Nations Global SDG database and ECLAC databases. Next, please. Finally, the National Statistical Monitoring Section intends to show the efforts made by countries in the statistical follow-up of the SDGs. Depending on the available information, it offers national SDG statistical fact sheets and national SDG country profiles. Next, please. In this slide, at the left, we can see a part of a national SDG statistical fact sheet, which comprises various aspects of the statistical monitoring of the SDGs at national level. It describes the role of the National Statistical Office in monitoring the SDGs and shows if the country has undertaken some activities, like the alignment of the SDG with the National Development Plan, if the country has undertaken an assessment of the statistical capacities, if the SDGs indicators have been adapted to the national context, or if new methodologies have been produced, among others. At the right part of the slide, you can see a part of a national SDG country profile. These profiles were developed by ECLAC based on official SDG data at the country level and at not necessarily comparable among countries. One indicator was selected for each of the 17 goals for which information was available, and there are links also to access all the full national information visiting the national SDG platforms. Next, please. Finally, I just wanted to go through very quickly through these sections intended to report on activities carried out by the UN system in the region to support the national statistical systems on SDG indicators monitoring and reporting. This section is fed with the information reported by each of the organization, and it was developed jointly by ECLAC, UNFPA, UN Women, and UNICEF. It provides information of 3 types of information. The first one are activities aiming at improving the measurement, use, and dissemination of the SDGs. The second part is activities aiming at improving and implementing data collection operation. And the third part is activities aimed at implementing or improving different mechanisms for institutional strengthening of national statistical systems. Each of these items can be consulted by country, by indicator, or by international organization. Next, please. This is just a part of a report by country. So you can see in how many indicators the country is being supported and where these indicators are in the SDGs at the right part. Next, please. And this is a part of a report by organization where there is a description of what the organization does. And in the map, you can see how many countries the organization is addressing and supporting in the region. Next, please. Just to conclude, we invite you to navigate the site and contact us if you have any question or comments for its improvement. This is a work in progress, so we expect to keep improving it over the time. The site is available in Spanish and English, and you can access through mobile or desktop. So thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very impressive. And I see that people are asking for your website, but you had it on the last slide, so that is very good.
Yes, I will put it in the chat anyways.
Yeah, well, that's also very good. Thank you very much. And then we move to the next item, which is community-driven data. So I invite Mrs. Annie Namala from Vadanatodo Abiyan to tell us about community-driven data. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the organizers for giving us this opportunity. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. The Vadanatodo Abhiyan, it means do not break your promises, is a civil society platform in India across the whole country with over 3,000 members. It's been active from 2004-5 from the MDG times. We have 3 core areas on which we work. The first is an annual government performance review, which reviews the annual performance of the government to its promises. A second one is an annual SDG review, and the third one is a People's Manifesto before elections. Next slide, please. As far as the SDGs is concerned, we cover about 4 to 5 dimensions. One is a civil society SDG report annually, which is created as a collective collaborative effort. So different organizations that work on particular SDGs or particular constituencies collaboratively bring out a report on the progress of SDGs in that year. We also have what is called 100 hotspots, about which I would be speaking a little more later. This is to look at vulnerable communities and to build their data tracking systems for looking at real-time data and monitor the SDGs for vulnerable communities. The third dimension that we have is we collaborate with the government in bringing the SDG VNR report 2020. We collaborated to bring focus on 16 vulnerable communities in India. And then, of course, we have the global civil society engagement. The next slide, please. Why do we need a focus on the leave no one behind groups or the vulnerable communities in India? If you would look at, not only is the population very large, but the diversity is also very large. We have about 3,000 subcaste communities. That's just one subgroups within a large group, which we call as under the caste system. We have over 703 tribal communities. We have 9 religions. In addition, you would have regional disparities, economic disparities. So we really are hugely diverse and also highly unequal. And we feel that it is very important to track the data of communities at a community level to really know what is the status as far as SDGs are concerned and what kind of policies and programs are necessary for them to catch up with this leave no one behind principle. Next slide, please. The next slide. Yeah. So how do we do the community-driven data? What we realize is our current national data is metadata, comes very infrequently. Sometimes, like the census is 10 years, a labor survey will be about 4 years, health survey is about 4 years. So we do not have a real-time data for communities. So we recognize the need for real-time monitoring by communities through community-driven data. So we work with vulnerable communities. So we identify vulnerable communities in pockets, take a sample of households, like about 100 households in any particular area, and we do a data collection through community leaders on a mobile application, which is then collated, curated to give us a report. So it primarily tracks the various SDG indicators, whether it's poverty, nutrition, education, gender issues, inequality. In addition, this report is also supported through focus group discussions and the large numbers of the partners, the members of the campaign actually support the communities in gathering the data. So we do have, so far over the last 2 years, we've collected data for 35 communities, 3,500 households across about 11 states of India. So it's really data which is not available at the national level or at the regional level, and it is real-time data that the community can use. The next slide, please. Next slide. So this is just a sample of how the data is reported in our report. It's not like on an online kind of a thing, but if you just look at, we have flagship programs to address housing, flagship programs to address health, sanitation. We have income if you look at. So we do community level data which is gathered and then it is mapped against the national data system. And it is also tracks you what is the gap between that community and national and international SDG data. So if you see even in flagship programs, like we have a housing for all program, we have a sanitation for all program. And if you look at the poverty line, there is a wide variation between these communities. In this report, you have 15 sub-communities, many of them tribal communities, some of them the subcaste communities, people with disabilities. So you can really see the variation between the communities and also the gap between the communities and the national poverty line or the SDG poverty line. So this really helps the communities to see how near or how far are they from various standards that we are tracking at this point in time. This is called the 100 hotspots. As I said, we've already done about 35 and we would be moving forward to get more and more data and also helping the communities to track their own data. And we cover at this point around 20 indicators in each of these reports. The next slide, please. So with the work that we've done, and this year when India presented its VNR report, both the government of India as well as the UN RC office supported us for holding consultations with very vulnerable communities. If you would see, we had 16 communities on which we had about 16 national and 36 sub-national consultations. You had women, LGBTQI communities, elderly, Dalits, farmers, people with disability, nomadic and denotified communities, a northeastern region, refugees, religious minorities. So it's like the diversity that we try to capture of vulnerable communities to bring it in. And so this was one of the chapters in our VNR report, and we also have a larger standalone report. The next slide, please. The next slide. So as far as this work is concerned, one of our big challenges is really capacity building of communities to gather the data and also to build robust data systems. How do we sort of do that? So we also have collaboration with international organizations, particularly the International Civil Society Center in Berlin and the IISD in Canada and many other organizations. So at global level, we are working together across countries to highlight the need for real-time data on vulnerable communities. So this is called the LNOB partnership project, and right now about 5 countries have been collaborating to bring data, and another 5 are in the line for doing that. So we call it the Making Voices Heard and Count. And we do recognize the need for community-driven data and at the same time guidelines and mechanisms to make it robust and real-time and available to communities and the government to track and ensure that the promise of leave no one behind is fulfilled. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Very impressive work.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hear my voice coming. Can I ask everyone to turn off their microphones while I will try to be heard? Thank you. So we have now got a number of questions in the web chat, and I would like to ask UNSD to read some of them out for the speakers. UNSD, please.
Yes, hi. I mean, there are quite a few. There's one that for Wadana Todo, in your experience, do you see that your community-driven data is actually being taken up as input through the national and eventually at the global level? Do you feel like your voice is being heard and counted? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I answer, ma'am? Thank you. Thank you. I think what I would sort of say is that this is a very initial step for us. We have tried to make it as robust as possible, but my sense is that we have been able to enter into the VNR process of India, providing data and like recommendations from the vulnerable communities, more or less because of the kind of community-driven data that we have been able to create. So I would not say it's the best or the most robust, but we are on our way, and we would like to make it more robust and have it where at the global level we can also collaborate, and also at the national level it can be used for policy and programs for communities.
Yes, thank you. I also see another one, Chair, if I may. I think also to her. What about standards? Are you using similar standards and classifications as NSO, and how are you liaising with the NSO in India? Thank you.
Thank you. The NSSO in India does not have data on these communities. See, the NSSO has its sample data on particular issues like labor or poverty, and they do not go by these vulnerable communities. So we don't have at this point in time really data that we can compare with within the national data sets. So that is why we would really feel it is important to collaborate at a global level to set standards, and also to be able to work together to understand the whole vulnerability issues and how SDGs are impacted on a multi-level layered way for vulnerable communities. It's not just nutrition issue, it's just not violence issue, it's just not economic issue, but really these communities are affected by all the SDGs. I think you really see the interrelatedness of the SDGs in these communities. If you're poor, your nutrition is bad, your employment is bad, your inequality is high, you live in a badly environmental area. So it's all these which make it really for them, and that's where we feel that the communities issues need to be really captured through data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was also a question posted in the chat for ECHA, but it seems like it was already answered. So, Madam Chair, perhaps we can just continue with the next agenda item, and for the participants, we can continue posting questions there, and the speakers may also answer directly in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for the interesting presentations. I think we have a lot to learn there. And with this, we will go over to the next item on our agenda, which is the global SDG monitoring activities. So I would like to ask Yonggi Min from UNSD to tell us about the global network of data officers and statisticians. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I would like to introduce the global network of data officers and statisticians. So we all know that the timely, quality, and open and disaggregate data are vital in enabling governments, development partner, international organization, the private sector, and the general public to make informed decisions for achieve the SDGs, and for now also for COVID-19 responses. So they're mainly critical for checking performance, designing evidence-based policy, and allocating resources, and holding stakeholders accountable, and also for better communicating SDG. And so the importance of the data and the statistics have never been as clear as during the COVID crisis. Such data are critical in understanding, managing, and mitigating the human, social, and economic effects of the pandemic, and in guiding the decision-making at each step of the pandemic response. Next slide, please. And however, the basic health, social, and economic data are often absent, particularly in many developing countries. Many of the data challenges encountered during the SDG implementation are severely limited the fully implementing the SDG and the COVID responses. So look at the global SDG indicator database. For 4 of the 17 goals, which is goal 5, 12, 13, and 14, less than half of the 194 countries or areas have internationally comparable data. For goal 4 on gender equality, on average, only 4 in 10 countries have data available. What's more, even countries with available data have only a small number of observations over time, making it difficult for policymakers to monitor progress and identify trends. So a large number of SDG indicators are available only with a significant timeline. For half of the countries, the latest data point available poverty-related indicators is 2016 or earlier. So in addition, the most vulnerable population who need help the most remain invisible, such as old persons, persons with disabilities, and refugees. Next slide, please. To support the UN Resident Coordinate Office, the data officers, and build the statistical capacity of the National Statistical Office, and also try to strengthen the NSO's coordination roles in the national statistical system in monitoring and reporting on SDGs, particular and the time of COVID. We would like to establish a global network of data officers and statisticians. Some of you probably heard of us mentioning this idea at a VNR SAD event at the 51st session of the Statistical Commission in March 2020. And since then, we have been working on preparing for the formal launch of this network. So the main objective of this network is to strengthen the national capacity in monitoring and reporting on SDGs through collaboration, coordination, knowledge sharing, networking, and the technical support. In particular, by facilitating the collaboration between data officers and NSO and National Statistical System in supporting the national governments in the full implementation of the 2030 agenda and in build back better from the COVID. So the network is meant to be the space for the data officers and economists working on data issues to interact with the global statistical community of statisticians, of NSOs, and other data and statistical experts from international and regional organizations and other stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the network provides the data officers at UN Resident Coordinator Office a platform to link to the chief statisticians and the UN Statistical Commission to ensure consistency and alignment with the guidelines, standards, and the principle developed and agreed by the chief statisticians as this intergovernmental process. Next, please. And through this network, the data officer and the national statistical system can collaborate efficiently and effectively to support national governments in the full implementation of the 2030 agenda under the review and reportings on the SDGs. Next slide, please. The network will also provide a platform for the data officers and the statisticians to share experiences, improve coordination, and consult experts at the national, regional, and the international levels on different topics related to monitoring and reporting on the SDGs. It will also help to promote international standards, best practice, system-wide coherence, and coordination on SDG monitoring. Next slide, please. And the network will support the full implementation of the 2030 agenda through use of better data, and also support the national SDG monitoring and reporting under the VNRs, and strengthen the statistical capacity building, including supporting tools to integrate new data source and geospatial data, and try to share knowledge and best practice on SDG monitoring, and try to improve coordination efforts on data and the statistic, and minimize overlaps, and foster synergies in data development and effort to improve statistical system, and also provide ad hoc expert support. Next, please. The main membership of the network is the data officers and the economists working on data issue as UN resident coordinator officers, and the statistician from National Statistical Office and the National Statistical Systems, and the expert and the statistician from regional and international organizations. Last slide. So the work plan and next step for this network. So we will establish a YAMR network, and we'll officially launch this network as a UN World Data Forum and World Statistics Day in October 2020. So the current and ongoing preparation work, including accessing needs of the data officer and NSOs, developing right content by working with experts, and building subgroups focused on different statistical domain. And currently we're working on subgroup on household survey, training, big data, and geospatial. We will create engagement strategies to promote the network and better serve the existing and potential users. And we're working in close collaboration and consultation with regional Commission and the CSSA, the international organization, and the UN SDG task team on data, and the office to support the resident coordinator office. So UN DESA will offer substantive support and facilitate the dialogue and collaboration. And thank you very much. Over to you, Co-Chair.
Thank you very much. I posted in the chat a JAMR network. What does that mean? What's the JAMR? What for someone who's not English like me?
It's a software that help to create a worker. It's a YAMR. It's like a existing. It's like a Facebook kind of network, so people can join. So we will develop user guidance and other supporting material when we officially launch this network.
Thank you very much. I see that you have got a question in the chat. Don't know if you could answer this, Yonggi. Your work is dedicated to monitoring and reporting. Could you say something on the link to evaluation?
Currently,
sorry. maybe we should save the question for the end. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I will answer at the end.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks. You have to wait. Thank you for the question. So then instead, I will go on to the next presentation, which is Mrs. Linda Hooper from UNSD, who will tell us about the World Statistics Day and what activities will happen there. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this opportunity to share information about World Statistics Day 2020. In June 2015, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 69/282, in which it decided to celebrate World Statistics Day every 5th year on the 20th of October. In establishing this observation, the Assembly invited all member states, the United Nations system, and other international and regional organizations, as well as civil society, research institutes, media, and all producers and users of official statistics to do their part to highlight the value of statistics in meeting the challenges of our time. At the 51st session of the UN Statistical Commission earlier this year, World Statistics Day was launched with the theme Connecting the World with Data We Can Trust. It will take place on the 20th of October. This is the third World Statistics Day. It coincides with the celebrations of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and with the virtual United Nations World Data Forum. As in the past, the campaign is decentralized with UNSD as the global coordinator. Next slide, please. The main messages center around the importance of statistics, the essential aspects of building and maintaining trust in data and statistics, especially in today's world, and the need for strengthening data ecosystems in countries to bring together quality data from various sources to provide more timely data. Next slide, please. So the logo has been translated into all 6 official languages, and the files can be downloaded on the website. Our team has developed the website, which is designed as a communication tool. It is a place to gather information on activities at national, regional, and international levels to promote World Statistics Day. And we look forward to including information about your planned activities here on the website, and you can share those with us. Next slide. So here are the 6 logos in the official languages. Next slide, please. So we will host additional translations of the logo. Currently, we have the logo translated into Japanese. And we also offer the guidelines and the visual information so that you can translate, have the materials to translate the logo. Next slide, please. A large part of the website is also the blog section, which includes messages about World Statistics Day, ranging from the chair of the Statistical Commission to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Next slide, please. So recently, the Secretary General shared a message with member states in which he noted that as the United Nations marks its 75th anniversary and the world deplores data to face a common challenge, let us use World Statistics Day to spotlight the role of statistics in advancing sustainable development for all. The full message from the Secretary General is available to be downloaded. So we look forward to including additional blog posts here to highlight celebrations, and you can, as I said, send us your information. Next slide, please. And to help promote World Statistics Day, we have various products that are available to be downloaded from the website. They include the gate banner, buttons, stationery, as well as a design to print stickers. Additional information on activities that will be carried out on World Statistics Day will also be made available on the website, which is the initiative Youngi described. So next slide, please. So I look forward to this year's World Statistics Day, and please do contact me if you have any questions and send me your ideas, and we look forward to highlighting your information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you for the invitation also. It looks promising. And with that, we will move on to the next item, which is the announcement of the 11th IAEG-SDG meeting. So I have the honor to tell you that this will also be virtual. It will take place over 3 days in November, going from the 3rd of November until the 5th of November, and it will be 3 hours every day. So from 8 to 11 a.m. in New York time, so very similar to what we are doing now. The agenda has not yet been finalized. It will be announced, but it will include similar items to our other fall meetings, which have included updates on the working groups, data availability of the indicators, experiences of implementing and monitoring the goals, and data on data disaggregation, and information about data disaggregation and looking at the work going forward for the group. So there we will delve into the activities that the groups are doing, and it will be a possibility to learn more about that. So I repeat again, the 11th meeting will be 3 days virtual, November the 3rd to the 5th. And I expect that I will meet many of you also there. We can put it in the chat also. With that, I will then move on to the next item, which is the World Data Forum and the HLG PCCB updates. And I ask Mr. Ian Rutherford from UNSD to take us through that. Thank you very much.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Rebecca?
I don't clear, Ian.
I mean, yes.
Hello?
I can.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Hello. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to the IAEG-SDGs. Pleasure to speak to you again following the last meeting when I covered the data stewardship. Probably do a brief introduction. My name is Ian Rutherford, as Rebecca said. I work as part of the Secretariat on the high-level group, which is also responsible for organizing the UN World Data Forum. And I'll just give a bit of an update on the World Data Forum. Paul, thank you for showing the website. So we reached quite a milestone yesterday. We opened the registration. So everyone is welcome to register now for the forum. There's 2 steps that you have to do. You have to fill out a short registration form just to obtain your ticket. And then once you get your ticket, the ticket gives you the instructions for how to access the Attendify platform. This is an event platform because obviously this year we're having to run the World Data Forum as a virtual event. Originally, it was supposed to be held in Bern, Switzerland, and we're running the virtual event on the same days as it would have been in Bern. The Bern event is still going ahead. The Swiss have now pushed that back to the 3rd to the 6th of October 2021. So we hope that we can still obviously hold that. There was a lot of planning that went into that earlier this year, and we've had to park some of that, and we hope to kind of reprise it after we complete the virtual forum. But at the moment, most of our concentration is obviously on this virtual forum, and we think it's got a lot of opportunities running it virtually. For a start, it allows a lot more people to attend. And even we've been opened the registration only for the last 24 hours, and we've already received 300 registrations. It hasn't even been actually 24 hours. So we really see a lot of chance for expanding the messages. It's quite an exciting program. Most of the sessions that were originally proposed continued with us once we announced that we were going virtual back in June. But considering the logistics, we were careful to choose a much more slimmed down live stream program. So we have it's about 50-50 split. We have about 50% of the sessions going pre-recorded, but that doesn't mean that there can't be some interactions around them. Paul, I wonder if you could just move to opening up the event platform. Yeah, so while Paul sort of pulls up the event platform to see where basically all the action will take place. So here's what the event platform. So after you fill out your registration ticket, and then you get the instructions to basically create your user profile on this Attendify platform, then you've got access to pretty much the entire program. I have to stress that on the World Data Forum website itself, it only gives kind of half the program, only gives the live sessions, and that was just to kind of give people a little bit of understanding of the kind of things that were going on. But to really access and understand all the things going on, you really need to gain access to this Attendify platform. And as Paul's going to show, we've got the pre-recorded, which I mentioned. So these are actually going to be released a week before the actual event starts on the 19th of October. So these will be released on the 12th of October. And this was to really give a bit of a kind of build up to the event itself. We didn't want to just release all this material within 3 days, which would have been, I think, impossible for people to consume, but rather give these pre-recordeds a week before people some chance to view them. Some of these session organizers, we've kind of left out to them, will run actually either chat-based Q&As or even sort of Zoom Q&As, one has suggested. And so you can see on the right-hand side, there's the ability to comment, to receive responses, to run polls. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And if Paul, you'd like to move on to the live program. So within the live program, so this is set up over the 3 days and contains around 30 odd sessions, where similar to the normal World Data Forum, if you've followed the structure, we have these high-level plenaries. I mean, we have an opening and closing session, and these will run at certain times. Just a quirk actually of the software, if you're accessing it like we're doing through the web browser, then you will see all the times for those slots within your local system time. So no need to figure out time zone changes. However, for whatever reasons, in the smartphone app itself, it's all programmed to New York time. So in that way, the web browser has a little bit of superiority. And maybe for most people, it's easier to use the web browser because you have your keyboard and everything if you want to type questions. Other kind of features to point out about the platform is obviously it lists out the speakers and you'll be able to search. Pretty good search capabilities, actually. You'll pick up on keywords, pick up on, you know, if you want to look at organization speakers and which parts of the agenda they're slotted into. We also have some beginnings of the exhibits. They're not quite worked up yet, but we'll be having more and more materials. We have about 12 exhibits. And then there's the chance through the general thing is to work. You have the community. I mean, you obviously have this front page, which has the activity stream. So a bit like social media, you can post comments for everyone. And in the community, you basically have all the user profiles. So if you sign up your profile, your picture, or whatever details, if you want to give it, you know, your contact information, these basic things, when you fill out your user profile, will appear, and you can actually send other participants messages. So it works sort of similar, I guess, a little bit to Facebook or Instagram. You could obviously post photos. You can there's hashtags and things like that. So there's a lot of ways, I guess, to interact specifically within the different session slots, as I've shown with the individual sessions. And another announcement I would like to make is, so tomorrow we are actually doing an information session to kind of support now, having opened the registration. And that information session will obviously go similar to what I've done now through the platform. It will highlight particular areas of the program. It will talk about the outcome statement that we're planning. So if many of you hadn't followed, we recently did an open consultation on the outcome statement, which we're calling the data community's response to COVID-19. It has a tagline of data for a changing world. And so there's a lot of different strands to this this forum, and that outcome statement will be kind of launched within the closing session, which we have planned for obviously the Wednesday. The program itself, just if I mean, of course, all this stuff will be recorded, even if it goes live. So if you check back, if it's, you know, the time zone or of a session isn't quite fitting you, or for whatever reasons, you can always check back and find the pre-recording. You can still leave questions and answers before, during, and after any session, pre-recorded or live. So the platform gives a lot of flexibility there. And generally the program runs sort of early morning. So I mean, if I take it New York time, it starts from about 7 a.m. New York time, running up to the very early afternoon. And we know that obviously isn't very a good time zone for East Asia, Australia, but that unfortunately was, we felt, the best time zone that we could cover large parts of the world. But as I said, you can always check back into a session and find in the recording of it quickly after the slot. So yeah, I think, Paul, the registration is now closed for tomorrow, but we will be live streaming the information session through this platform. I don't know if we put a slot up for it yet, Paul, but certainly we will shortly. Otherwise, if you go onto the website and you try to register, we usually put the link there as well. So everyone is welcome. The other thing I actually want to kind of lastly maybe mention about the kind of logistics, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of information I'm packing in here, is that a lot of the sessions that we will be running personally, so that's basically the high level sessions, the opening and the closing, will be run through YouTube. And with YouTube, you have the ability to run live captioning. And even, I believe, and we're sort of testing it, is even after it's recorded, is to actually translate or have it in different languages, those live captioning. We obviously we can't promise how good it is. It's run by an algorithm. But these algorithms, I guess, are improving all the time, and we felt, again, part of the inclusiveness of everyone coming in. One thing we were wanting to offer was to try and see if we could do more language support in these things, being it virtual. So that's one of the things. Yes, sorry.
Do you think you could summarize?
Yes. So in final, to summarize, please register and please attend our information session tomorrow. You can find the details on the website, or when you register through here, you can find it in the program. And I will just spend a couple of minutes on the data stewardship. I mentioned it last time. To be honest, with the workings for the World Data Forum, a lot of things haven't progressed as quickly as we'd liked. We are at the moment still collecting case studies. We'll be working on the draft, and hopefully in autumn we will have a first draft of the document. And of course, we will be preparing the document for the high-level group for the Statistical Commission. So watch this space. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Very nice. And with that, we are coming over to the Q&A session of the meeting. So I would like UNSD to please help us with some of the questions from the chat. Thank you.
I thank you. For now, I see one for Linda Hooper from the chat. Can we have a quick impact of World Statistics Day in terms of data in action by region? Linda?
So, hi, sorry. Well, we have from the World Statistics Day, and World Statistics Day is celebrated every 5 years. And from the 2015 one, I know that there's over 130 countries that had translated the law. I know that's not exactly what you're asking. I think that this is maybe an area we can work on in the next couple of weeks to try and understand the impacts in action by region. At the moment, we don't have very many activities, but we can do an analysis like that as we receive material. So it's very important to send and share your plans for World Statistics Day so that we can understand and look at what's being done and how different regions and countries are taking place. I mean, I know a couple of examples of what's being done. I know that I heard that in Finland they'll be having a video that will be on their subway on World Statistics Day, and then there are also some lecture series that I think are being held in Mexico, and we have a couple of other pieces of information like that. But I can get more information like that as the event goes on and after the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see another one. This one directed to Yong-Yi. The question is, could you say something on the link to evaluation as a further step to use the data generated? Also, is evaluation part of your mandate? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We don't have a specific mandate, but member states have been asking, and we're trying to identify better way of accessing data use for policy and decision making. And there's a lot of work going on to understand the data impact, how data is changing lives. So for example, the data community, Open Data Watch and GPSDD is working on it. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. I see now a question to our chair, to Albina.
Yes, okay, yeah, thank you. Should we now go over to the general Q&A?
Yes,
we really appreciated all the interesting questions that we received during the registration, but we won't be able to address them all, and they were also very, some of them more pertaining to this group and others perhaps a bit more general. But Albina and I will review some of them in the allotted time and focusing on those that we felt belong to the IAG and SDG monitoring, where we have a possibility to say something. So if I can ask you, UNSD, to read some of them out, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, sure. One of the questions we received from the registration first is, have you considered marketing and communication strategies to achieve the SDGs?
Can I come in? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, of course, marketing and communication strategies to achieve SDGs is a global agenda that has to be brought forward by everyone, in fact. And again, it is true that involvement of different audience like marketers, big company managers, non-profit organizations, and academia is very important to market implementation of SDGs and its outlook, and even beyond 2030. Of course, at country level is the best modality to market and communicate achievement of SDGs. But as we know, national statistics offices like mine here, we do have our communication strategy that we normally disseminate our statistical products publicly, and not just the SDGs, as this is an important component of our work. So I think we should go that way, and assuming that marketing and communication strategies to market the SDGs is a global agenda that everybody could play a role. Thank you, Paul, for that question number one under the communication category.
Yes, I have another question which also came in from the registration, which is, are we opening a review of indicators in light of COVID-19 to look more closely on equity concerns on health, education, work, consumption, among others?
Yeah, of course. This work has been started within our group to identify indicators related activities to COVID-19. And of course, a subgroup has been formed. And of course, we will share the feedback with all stakeholders at our 11th IEG meeting, as Viveka has pointed out. Over to you, Paul.
Yes, thank you. For the next question, any delay on deadlines for reporting to the IAEG-SDGs in view of the situation created by the pandemic, which has impacted normal activities, including with regard to the collection of data against recently approved indicators? Are there any delays?
Thank you, Paul. We do anticipate that countries will be delayed in reporting data for the SDGs, given many norm activities have been impacted, and is even worse for developing countries, and even more worse in African countries. So custodian agencies and countries will have to work together within timelines that are flexible and reasonable. But it is possible that some data will not be available. And of course, to some extent, some of the national statistical offices have postponed the activities related to face-to-face interview, and they adopt other technologies to collect data, especially developing countries where systems for data collection are not in good shape like others. To establish the impact of IAEG-SDGs, we need to work with custodian agencies to establish scientific impact, because we can't say without having the scientific way of doing that. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. We're doing well here. I have another question is, how can the roles of local governments be enhanced for real-time monitoring of the SDGs domestication at community level?
Thank you, Paul. Of course, at the country level, a senior staff from the local government who can make a decision is sitting at the national team on SDG data platform. In some of the countries, we are doing so. For instance, in my country here in Tanzania, we do have local leaders who are sitting at the district levels. And what we normally do is to train them in basic data collection and compilation using Excel. And some of these local leaders in Tanzania are graduates. So this is very, very important for them. And impacting the technology is not a big deal for them. And we are doing a great job here with some population register that they are trying to do that. And hoping in doing so, in the later stage, we may improve their capacity. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. For the next question, due to COVID-19 pandemic, some SDG and targets are obviously not on track for 2030. Are there indicators related still relevant for monitoring?
Thank you very much. I can try and answer this one. So we've received this question from very many different actors, I have to say. And the assessment that we've made is that they are still very relevant, if not even more relevant than before, because the agenda is essentially a blueprint for how to build a better world back from the global pandemic. So the root causes and the uneven impact demonstrate precisely why we need to have such an encompassing agenda as the 2030 agenda, and also the Paris Agreement on climate change and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. And it only tells us more that we need to underscore their implementation. So I think we are lucky that the agenda was already set up before the virus struck us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. For the next question, there are some indicators which are in tier 1 or in tier 2, but still the metadata is not available. What initiatives have been taken by the IAEG SDGs to ensure availability to those metadata, including those new and revised indicators?
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are undertaking a review of the data and metadata gaps, and we are talking to custodian agencies to make sure that we have the gaps filled or a status update provided within the coming weeks. So this will include all the indicators metadata from the 2020 comprehensive review, but also existing indicators in the framework.
Madam Chair, would you like another question, or would you like to wrap? It's up to you.
Wrap up is a good idea because we've got 1 more minute. So I would like to thank everyone very much for attending to the meeting, and we look forward to see you again virtually for the upcoming 11th AG meeting in November. So thank you to all and stay safe. It was nice to hear your voices and to see what all the presentations.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And thank you also. for all the preparations in the meeting.